homeworks or quizzes? Does anybody know what they mean? It's the last class. It's summer. I was like, I want a party. Okay, put up your hand if you've been to every single one of these long and never-ending course for every single one. Thank you, Paul.
Video counts.
What? Video counts. Nice. So this I. Ha! Ha! Hi. Oh, nice to see me. Wow. Party. Yeah, likewise. Yeah. Okay, so it's so much information from all parts of the canon. And I felt tricked the first time we didn't talk about future lives until like class 7 or 8. The rest of it was preparation. So hopefully today we take it home and we leave you with a teaser to say, come back to course 5. Next week we're going to do review. So we'll do all the classes. And you'll get an opportunity next week, not just to do all the classes, but to do any homeworks and quizzes that you missed out on. And we'll do the exam same day. So we'll just do a paperwork day. But what I want to do is make sure that the information you take away you can use daily to include in some kind of daily practice. So hopefully today we'll get to look at, well, out of all these classes, what can you use? What can you really use? And what impact is it going to have in your life? So I hope we can do that. To start, let's set our motivation for being in a space for the next 2 hours where we hope to learn something ultimate, something that can shift us. So let's try that. Let's begin the
Sashi Huti Jishim Etotam Vira Vinci Mindegim Padi Sangye Shindu Mite Uargi Durgunanda Shinla Jupasho Irang Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami Sangye Shudam Saki Choknamba Jonshu Bardu Dakni Pyaksuchi Daki Jinye Gipe Sonamki Jola Penchir Sangye Parsho Sangye Shudam Soki Choknamba Jonshu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Jinye Gipe Sonamki Jola Penchir Sangye Parsho Sangye Chudam Soki Choknamba Janchu Larju Dakni Taksuchi Daki Jinye Gipe Sonamki Drola Penshir Sange Juparsho.
Meditation assignment at the end of today is the last point I make at the class. So I'm going to just ask you to consider 4 ways of perceiving how you perceive yourself, four ways of experiencing how you perceive yourself. Okay, so we'll just touch on that in our meditation, just quickly, just touch on, follow, yeah, there we go. Take a seated posture. Allow your mind to be pressed tightly against the breath and become in tune with that. So your mind and your breath are almost identical. Do one last scan of your body, making sure you release any tension. Face, your shoulders, your neck, your legs. Just make sure you'll forget your body for the next 10 minutes. Ease into the sensation of the breath, your mind following the entry and the exit of your breath in your nostril. And invite your holy teacher to sit in front of you, facing you. And upon the first millisecond of your mind going there, they appear. See if you can build up a sensation of their presence in front of you. Some radiance in their shape, if you can visualize them. If not, a sensation of their presence. Physical sensation pulling towards you. Make them as present as you can. Offer them something of beauty for having come and for being with you. Begin to think of their highest quality. What is it about them, perceived by you, that is the most ultimate? Spend some time revering that quality in them. This is the prostration for those of you who do that visually. fact that you can recognize that quality is already a pull towards becoming that quality. So to do that, see if we can remove any obstacles that we put in our way in the last 24 hours by recalling the last time we did something out of ignorance. Maybe we got angry, we were jealous, we held to a wrong view, we broke our promise. Anything that will have the same result in your life in the future, causing more of the same, and that prevents you from achieving that quality you saw in your teacher. So see if you can find a moment like that in the last 24 hours or so, and build some intelligent regret around it. Recognize that it will produce the same thing, but bigger over time, obstructing your mind from achieving that quality. See if you can make a promise to yourself to not do that same thing the next time the opportunity arises, and keep to that promise. Because you understand the implications of that action in your life with wisdom. And feel a little clean for having done so. Now beautifully allow your mind to look for the most lovely thing you did in the last day or so. What was the wisest you, the most compassionate you that emerged, and that you flowed in that moment? You brought some wisdom or joy in the world, and that action must have its result of a similar nature, but bigger. And so look for that moment where you did some kindness towards another or yourself. Feel some joy in your heart for having the wisdom to do that. Double that joy by identifying that there are other people in your world also doing similar kindnesses. Think of how fortunate they are, those people doing goodnesses on purpose. Feel joy for them. And with that mindset, ask your teacher to please always teach you at every turn. And to stay close to you for as long as it takes. When you see them, agree. Rise up, facing the same direction you're facing. Floating just above the crown of your head and getting smaller and smaller. Until they're placed there like a beautiful crown ornament. Every potential that you see in them available to you, guiding you, protecting you. Pregnant with possibility of goodness. Now I'd like to invite you to transport yourself to the most peacefully isolated place you can imagine on this planet or in your imagination. It's just you. And you bring with you every single thing you've collected in this life, every thought and every action, every identity. You bring your whole collection of this life with you to this place. It's just you. See if you can feel what it is like to be the nominal you, the unexamined you, the you that has a name in a form. How does that you exist? Does that you exist? Nominal you is the you experience by your name and the things you think and do. There's an existence there that you identify, that's okay. That is you. That is the nominal you. Unexamined, just present. Now I'd like you to reset. See if you could start that meditation again. You step into this place, but this time I'd like you to look for the self-existent you. What would it feel like? What does it feel like to see yourself as a self-existent thing? Solidly how you nominally perceive yourself. And under investigation, you feel that you are truly there. That you are truly your name and your body as it is. Your thoughts in your mind. What does it feel like to be that self-existent you? You that innately comes from you, your body and your name and your mind. What does it feel like to walk around as a thing that springs from itself, self-existent? Next, I'd like you to withdraw that and return and reset that meditation. You arrive at this place again, fresh this time. But this time I'd like you to see if you can identify with the you that has perceived ultimate reality directly, understands that things are not self-existent, but sees things as self-existent. So you've had an insight that is unshakable. You know that things come from perceptions and movements of mind planted by karma, but they appear to you as coming from their own side, including the idea of you. So you don't believe the way that they appear to you. What does it feel like to be that kind of being? You know the movie you're watching is a lie. You know a greater truth about that movie and where it comes from. But as the script gets played out, you cannot change the words or the images. They appear as truth. You know there is something else, and you have certainty around that. So you maneuver in that life very different. What does that feel like to be? How would you respond to that kind of world? So I'd like you to withdraw that now and return and reset this arrival at this place, just you. And this time you are a being who has seen the ultimate nature, have seen emptiness directly. And things do not appear to you as self-existent anymore. You see them as they truly are. What does it feel like to be that kind of being? How do you perceive the world around you, your history, any future? How do you identify with who you are? This meditation, I'd like you to thank your teacher and return back to this room. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. That was really quiet, that was nice, thank you. Except for the ACI. How was that? So last week we did the last of the proofs. Wow. Coming out of the closet. Like New York cockroaches. I mean, they're cute. Thank you. Like New York rats out of an aqueduct. That's right, rats out of an aqueduct. So, at the review, we'll go through all the 10 proofs which are problematic for most Westerners, me included. Yeah? Yeah? Give me everything. They're like, sort of buy it. But really? Remember, and Dharmakirti's arguing with the Charvakas saying, there is past and future lives. There are future lives. Because here's 10 arguments. Yeah? And some of them are silly, and some of them, and they're not the only 10. There's a bunch of others in that text. Do you remember why he did that? Why they're arguing past and future lives? Someone remember, please.
They want to be able to show that you can generate enough compassion to become enlightened.
Excellent. They want to show that.
Oh, because
that there are
one life wouldn't be enough. So you
excellent.
need multiple
So now you're going
lives.
back. Excellent. So one life wouldn't be enough to
generate enough compassion to have
become
enlightened.
Enlightened. Yeah, because they were discussing omniscience. Remember? And then they were discussing the 5 qualities of a Buddha, one causing the other. The last one being compassion is the mother of Buddhahood. That's why the discussion around compassion. It's like, okay, so you're telling me that the only way we're going to get to be a Semagirpa, is that? Remember what that was?
Turn correct.
Totally correct being, which means a Buddha, yeah, an omniscient being. Someone who only has semas or brahmanas, ultimate and relative. You can see both. The only way you can do that is if, what was the reverse order? Does anybody remember?
Come on, Emily. It's your time to shine.
Protector.
So in order to become totally correct, you are the protector, is that correct?
That's correct.
Totally? Just because you give me it with confidence doesn't mean that I have to believe you. Is that true?
I'm sticking to it.
You're sticking to
You're
it.
a teacher. You're the teacher.
Who's got doubt about that? Do you want me to increase the doubt?
And I can't
Okay,
remember.
let's follow your argument. So to be totally correct, to be a Semagirpa, you have to be a protector. How do you know that they're a protector? This is a...
They've taught them, didn't it?
Huh?
Oh, because they're in bliss. That's what it was. They turned to bliss. No.
Speak, someone. Come on.
Can we look at our notes?
Now I'm going to go back to the notes. Make sure I'm totally correct.
I remember
Anyone?
them, just not from which order they're in.
The protector because they can teach emptiness.
The protector because
They can teach.
how can you protect? How can the
Are
Buddha
we going
protect you?
backwards order?
Yeah, it's backwards.
So protector is first. So it's
So
not-
you become totally correct because you're a protector. Excellent.
Because you have gone to bliss because you have seen ultimate reality. I'm really cheating. I'm looking at
No, I know you're cheating. Yeah, that's.
Okay.
I see you going. It's because. No, but that's fine. Cheating is fine. But I want you to get the logic that they presented.
Right.
Yeah, you can be a being of complete correct perceptions, and the implication is that you only speak truth. Yeah, that you know how things function, and so you can only speak truth. Yeah, so you protect. How are you the protector? How can you protect? How can the Buddha protect you? That's the teacher. It's because he teaches the 4 real truths. Now, how do you know that? Because he taught the first one correctly, and the rest you guess is right. Yeah, really, that's what it's about. And he's gone to bliss. That's the only way he can become a protector. He's himself removed all the mental afflictions. He's himself has gone through the path, or she. Yeah, and he can only be in bliss if he is a teacher of emptiness. Yeah, which is the way to remove, and he can only ever be a teacher, wish to teach, share to teach, because he has compassion enough for every being. So that's the beginning sentence of Dharmakirti's work. And in that, the whole commentary, of Dignaga's work, and the commentary from Dharmakirti goes and mostly speaks about that. And that's why we're having a whole discussion around, well, if that's true, then you're going to need so much compassion. It's going to take so long. Things just got illuminated on Birdie. Did you see that? Bingo! Okay. Let's see what I can share with you now. Thanks for that rapid review. The last argument that Dharmakirti gives out of the 10 was consider the mind of a normal person at the moment of death. Remember, he's arguing with the Charvakas, right? He's giving them all these convoluted arguments. It can't be the 4 elements, it can't be the chemicals, it can't be this, otherwise this, and otherwise that, and otherwise this. But the last one, he's saying, consider, this is the last one we did last week, consider the mind of a normal person at the moment of death. It will have to cross over into a similar state of mind in the next life because it possesses desire at the time of death. That's his last argument. He's like, remember he started playing in their field, going, oh, okay, you think it's the chemicals, you think it's the elements, you think it's the sperm, you think it's, so he goes into the physical matter, he corners them and then he flips and goes, that's all crap. It's actually this. And the last argument he's saying to them, of course, you can have future lives because the mind continues, has this tendency to continue, which was the second last argument, over and over and over, all throughout a life. Why would that stop at the last thing? Not only that, it must continue because it possesses desire at the moment of death. Yeah? Now the implications of that for a Western thinker that hasn't had some study can be a little Catholic. For me, I'm going to speak from my perspective. I mean, like, I can do the hell I want all my life, turn up in the confessional just before I kick the bucket, remove desire, bingo, no more lives. If this is true. Right? Do you see what I did with that? Yeah. I'm like, this is a nice ticket. So I don't want you to get, that's why I brought the wheel off, I don't want you to get the impression that it's that sort of, oh, no worries. You can erase all the naughty things and then you can eliminate next suffering lives by just getting rid of desire at the moment of death. So that's what Dharmakirti says to them at the Charvakas. And as the Charvaka, would you buy that? I wouldn't buy it as a Charvaka. I'm like, come on, why? So anyway, we'll talk a little bit about the Wheel of Life and the 12 links of dependent origination, which was something that Charvakas had as an understanding at the time. We'll talk about links 2 and 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, 12, or something like that. Yeah, and there's various ways to talk about that. That's a whole course all on its own. That was the first course I taught at the 3 Jewels. So maybe if there's an opportunity, we can teach that again because it's a lovely, lovely course. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. What do we have up here? Sipa Korlo. So Sipa?
Sipa
Korlo.
Korlo.
That means the wheel of life or existence of wheel. Yeah? The wheel of existence. And just a quick summary of what it is. If you see the big ugly monster, so the 4 Arial truths are contained, the 4 noble truths are contained in the wheel of life. The big ugly monster gripping the circle is Mr. Death. Yeah? Every creature within that circle is forced to experience samsara, a suffering world, cycle of rebirth and birth, suffering birth. It is produced through the 12 links of dependent origination, which start at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, etc. Yeah. The first link under the left fang, yeah, is usually 1 or 2 blind men or women dressed in white, blind, walking with a cane towards a cliff. Yeah, which is like a really yucky thing. So that's ignorance, not knowing, and it's a specific kind of ignorance. The second one is what we're going to talk about. I think it's here, is it? No, but that's okay. Is a man making pots, so he's a potter. He's making pots. And that is fresh karma, brand new karma produced through ignorance, through not knowing how the world truly operates, not having an understanding of the ultimate nature of things. Without knowing that, we think things are self-existent, they come from their own side. We act towards them in that manner, and because that is flawed to start with, we generate karma, is the idea. Fresh karma. Pots holding pockets of karma. We're producing them all the time. 65 finger snap, everything we think, say, and do is represented by link number 2, which is do Jakile, making fresh karma. The rest, which would be consciousness, I've got to think. Consciousness is a monkey grabbing a fruit, I think it is. Yep, is namshe, consciousness. Is because of karma, we invoke consciousness, if you like, that then produces name and form. I don't want to go through the teaching, we just men in the boat, that then produces the 6 sense powers, which are the 6 houses, the house with the 6 windows, which then produces contact with outside objects, which is the couple having intercourse, which then, and this one I want to talk about, produces, as soon as you have contact between the sense powers and external objects, you have feeling arise. You actually have a sensation arise. All of these have depth about them, so I'm just giving you a quick flavor of how the second link, generating karma through our actions of mind, body and speech every day, can possibly produce the karma that they're talking about here. And we're doing the whole next course on karma, so I won't go into detail about that. Link number 10 is a pregnant woman. Let me just make sure link number 10 is a pregnant woman, and that is not there. See that? And that is potent karma. Karma about to pop out and explode, and it's the projecting karma of a next life. This is what we're going to talk about, because Dharmakirti's argument hinges on that, understanding that link, which was understandable at the time. The karma, so potent, laden with, he says, possesses, because it possesses desire at the time of death. Desire at the time of death. So that karma, the projecting karma on link number 10, is nothing but one of the karmas from the potter, that anything we do, say, or think, but this one is like hyper intense on steroids. It's like hydrogen bomb that gets fused up or has a trigger in it produced by the previous link, which is grasping. And that is produced by the previous link, which is craving. And craving is produced by the previous link, which is feeling. Okay? So if we understand that, and it's a whole understanding, you can see how one karma, and we'll talk about it in a second, particularly at the moment of death, can have so much power, so much of that desire laden in there, that craving, that it must project onto a next moment of being. And that's what Dharmakirti is talking about, so we're going to cover that today. But just so you all get a little familiar with the Wheel of Love. Who studied the Wheel of Love? I know you have. A little bit? Okay. So Mr. Death is holding all the 6 realms of existence, and sometimes 5, because the gods and demigods are considered one sometimes. And they say that any beings, any kind of quality of being in samsara can appear in these 6 forms. The human realm is one of those. Can you point to the human realm, anyone?
It's the inner.
top right hand corner. Is that it? We've got a bunch of humans in there doing stuff. Yeah. And then the one underneath that is the animal realm. Is that right? There's a bunch of animals on the. Oh, that one, good. On the opposite side of that, you have hungry ghosts. Yeah, that's it. People with big bellies. Is that correct? Yeah. Underneath that, you have the hell realms, beings experiencing torture. The cold hells on the right, the hot hells on the left. And then at the top, that and the top part, that's the demigods and the god realms. Okay? Lesser beings. They're saying that there's 6 flavors of being in samsara. And within each flavor, we have the human flavor here. We can see in our experience the animal realm. Some people in our realm believe they can see the ghost realm, yeah, and the demigod realms. I can't talk about that. And the hell realms. But the thing that we share in common, the thing that turns that wheel over and over, so the 12 links of dependent origination can be explained in several ways, can be explained in 3 lifetimes. So ignorance and karma is past life, then consciousness, consciousness, name and form, the house with the 6 sense powers, contact, and feeling, I think there's more here, then craving and grasping the current life up until the pregnant woman, the charged up karma, and then the last 2 links are future lives, which is birth is the second, is link 11 at 11 o'clock, and old age and death is just before midnight. Yeah. So that's another way of explaining it. So just so you know, it can also be explained as the activity we do millisecond after millisecond. And it depends who you get the teaching from, but they're all fairly valid. I mean, they can give you insight, which is the point of them. At the core, at the very center of the wheel, the thing that turns the whole thing on is a pig. He signifies ignorance, a specific kind of ignorance, of not knowing the ultimate nature of things, ignorance about the ultimate nature of reality, that things are not inherently existent, not knowing that things are empty of any quality from their own side. Not knowing that produces 2 states of being, and from his mouth he vomits forth two animals. One is a snake which sheds its skin, which says, I don't want that. Ignorant, disliking. Because I don't know where things come from, I think they are self-existent. They vomit out from the pig. Yeah, because I don't know where things come from. I think they come from themselves. I think they're self-existent. So as soon as I feel a suffering, some kind of hurt, my whole being says, I do not want that. And like the snake shedding its skin, ignorantly disliking that thing, because it dislikes it for the wrong reason, it begins to produce karma. Yeah. Or ignorantly liking, which is the rooster, which used to be is it a dove? A pigeon. It used to be a pigeon in the earlier days. But you know how the pigeons, I used to think as a kid that God made a mistake and he created a tendon too short from the neck to the toe. And so every time they moved, he had to peck. You know, and I thought, that's a mistake. Anyway, the pecking the pecking is the want. I want another thing. I want more. That's ignorantly wanting, ignorantly liking. So from the ignorance of the pig come 2 states of mind, which is ignorantly liking, ignorantly disliking. And you could summarize your entire existence on this planet as doing that millisecond after millisecond, millisecond after millisecond. We maneuver everything. I don't like the sensation, I don't like the clothes, I don't like the makeup, I like this, I look at that, I'm going to get that, I'm going to... Yeah, and I can tell you exactly, I can probably tell you between now and when I go to bed, all the things that my mind has already put expectations on that I'm going to like and I'm going to dislike. And then we go and encounter this total ignorance vomited out, yeah, creating with that not knowing how things function, we create this world. And that's what he's talking about. So we're going to spend some time diving in there. Then, just for your information only, there's the Barda realm, which is the black and white half moons on either side of the center. And that's beings forever elevated in this cycle and dropping in this cycle, elevated in this cycle and dropping in this cycle. Yeah? Sometimes you have a rainbow coming out of there and going all the way to the top left-hand corner. That there's a lady at the moment up there. Traditionally, it was a moon, a full moon, signifying nirvana. And on the far right-hand side, outside the wheel, is the Buddha pointing at nirvana, pointing at the other side. He's outside the wheel of life, and the fourth component, the flower retreat, is not in there, is the instructions on how to read it. And that usually is either right underneath the moon or just underneath there. But in essence, it says you're dead over and over and over and over, so long as you got these three things working in your every interaction. And in fact, the practice, because the 12 links of dependent origination, ignorance leads to planting karmas then leads to consciousness, and the building of the body essentially in one sense, and then what that body does once it gets feeling, what that consciousness does when it gets feeling, and then it gets some kind of attachment, some kind of desire, ignorant desire towards it, and then it becomes craving. And then we're talking about a specific kind of craving before the end of the class. That is the one he's talking about here. And that produces the impulse for this mind to continue doing that crap over and over and over and over, and jumps and flops over into another existence projected from itself into future life, and then more of the same. So the last link is aging and dying. More of the same, over and over and over. So the idea is that link number 1 produces link number 2, produces link number 3, 4, number 5, and 6. And this, we talked about it in this class 2 classes ago. I remember the Tibetan name for it, for the reverse order, where if you don't want to die this kind of death and be reborn this kind of world, all you have to do is remove the previous cause of that in these 12 links of dependent origination, which in the case of the pregnant woman, if you don't want to have that projecting karma erupt at the time of death, that projects your entire whole life, this plutonium-based, so powerful that it produces a 70-year experience or an 80-year experience of self. Yeah? If you don't want that kind of projecting karma, you must get rid of the link before. You got to dissolve that craving. And the only way to do that is you've got to get rid of the one before. Yeah? The one before, all the way to ignorance. Kill ignorance, you can't ever plant karmas ignorantly. And you can't have it. The cycle continues. And it doesn't mean you disappear, you don't exist, or anything. It means you're outside this whirlpool of life and death. So we're going to talk about that, because it's important to this argument. Any questions? Bingo, bingo, bingo. Pass that around, and I'm happy to send it over as a summary of the Wheel of Life. So, what did Hector do just now? He did the review, he did that. The potent trigger. What was it that you have out there? Sibakolo, Niepa, Duse, Jigse, where did you get those from? Oh, I get Duse. Okay, got it. Thank you. So any questions on that? Feel free to get up and go have a look now so you have a visual when I talk about it. If you want to go, we'll take a minute. Go have a look. I'll get up too.
There's a restaurant called Hungry Ghosts.
Is there really Hungry Ghosts?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the dude making pots. Here's the blind person, the Cliff. Cliff, you want to talk about Cliff? You want to talk about Cliff? This is the monkey consciousness, dragon fruit usually. The name and form. Huh? Namarupa. See, he knows this stuff. The 6 senses. which are the 6 doorways of this empty house. This is the production of a new being. Contact, the 6 senses are contact with external objects which produce feelings such a horrible visual, right? This is a man holding an arrow to his eye, pushing it. Yes, it's got a little bit of feeling. Feeling produces. This is the guy drinking up. Is that right? That he's getting drunk. I can't remember. Where's the piece of paper? Craig. Yeah, man drinking wine. It's like getting drunk. Yeah. And then when craving, enough of that to actually have this very, very strong grasping. And so now he's willing to go and climb all the trees and grab stuff. Grab your fruit. Yeah. So yeah, the hand in there you can't take it out. And this is funny how you can see the bump on the woman. So there are many people that make tankas. So you have the people that do the lines, then the people that do the background, and the people that do certain deities. And you can see here that somebody wasn't professional enough. The bump is in there in the woman, but he thought he'd better do a nice skirt straight, so he didn't paint the bump. You see, it's pretty good. So that's called becoming Sipa. And that's the 10th link, the one that forces birth. And this is actual birth. A woman giving birth, there's a little baby coming out from the back, side. Weird. And then here that's not how it happens. These are monks painting this. And here you have old age. So if you see a sack on the back of that guy, that's old age and death. Yeah, so he's carrying that person that's just died, and then there's a corpse in there. So this is the cycle. Here is the gods and demigods, the human realms, the animal realms, the hungry ghost realm, and then the cold hells in the beds and grass, and the hells. They're forever fighting. So the idea is that they're on one side of Mount Meru. Remember when we do the mandala, we're symbolizing Mount Meru, the central, and at the very top of Mount Meru are the demigods, are the gods and the demigods, which are just pleasure beings. That it means the idea is that you've planted all these karmas, these great karmas. Maybe you sat and meditated for 10, 15 years and you haven't done any shitty karma to produce any kind of gross discomfort in your life. So you have a life produced, you have an experience of a life with a nice, beautiful body. You might live 500 years or something like that in kind of pleasure. Every now and then they get jealous of each other, which is one time that the negative emotions arise. You have a little shit fight for who's at the top of Mount Meru. So you can take these as metaphors for the way that humans live on this planet, if you want. That we aspire to higher and higher means, and if you look at America, if you look at the West, if you look at the clothes we are wearing, the kind of water we drink, and kind of where the rest of the world is craving for that stuff, not knowing what produces it, and we're still not happy. So it can be a metaphor for that. So there's a war often happening between the gods and demigods. But in essence, all these beings must suffer a perception of self-existence at death. So, and then you're just normally going through your life thinking that you're acting in this way and liking disliking because you like that. That's a nice thing. That's a bad thing. It's a good thing. You think that you're naturally behaving in accord with reality, but in fact you are going against reality. If you understand what reality is, and therefore you're having a counter effect. At some point, all these karmas start breaking down and produce suffering for you. Nothing is. Very few karmas planted in a life with wisdom. Wisdom meaning understanding that things don't come from their own side. Every single experience you have is produced, is felt in you, number one. It's not felt in anywhere else. And that is only produced and forced on you by you. Not by choice, not by I want to, or anything like that. And understanding that begins to break the cycle. So what the meditation we just did to try and identify what it would be like to be a being that has seen ultimate reality, how things really function, that there is no person I dislike out there, that in fact my experience of that person, although that functions that way and I have to act towards that person in that way, in my experience of them I have to be aware that that's not where they come from. That's a tricky thing. It means you're doing exactly the same stuff that everybody else is doing on the planet, outwardly perceived as fixing problems, building houses, doing all these things, but internally you're smashing ignorance. So you look exactly the same outwardly, and then things start to shift for you, and then you begin to break the cycle. If you have an ultimate experience of reality, see emptiness directly, you see how the peak produces those two, and then you realize that the onslaught of that karma that you've planted for lifetimes, it still continues like a flood. It's coming your way, but you all of a sudden are facing the onslaught, and you know where it comes from. Before you were like going along, pushed by it. You think that's your reality. It's being pushed by you, for other reasons. This is the bar that's the same. Coming up, and yeah. The tiny skin is something that, what's his name? His name is Marka. Big up YouTube. Yeah. He wears, and that's got special significance. Yeah. In some tankas, some of the original tankas, there wasn't a Buddha in each of the realms. But why would you think there's a Buddha in each of the realms? Huh?
This symbolizes the omniscience of the Buddha, right?
Or the compassion.
So where's the Buddha really in this picture? He's outside, and he's pointing to around. So why would there be Buddhas in there, or bodhisattvas?
He's emanating.
That's one answer.
What is he pointed at? What is he pointed
That's where you want to go. Hey, do that. You do this, do that. You're gonna get there.
He's not gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he abides there. He teaches. Okay. That's it. Happy birthday. Let's get some towels. You want to pass that around? So, understanding that, you understand now that link number 10, which is becoming, or the pregnant woman, is just karma, but potent karma, about to go off. You get that? Yeah? Understand that in this way of explaining how things come to be, that link number 2 is karma. So that's what Gyepa means, link number 8. Because you can't get to link number 10, which is becoming, which is the pregnant woman, without going through grasping, which is link number 9. And you can't get to grasping without craving, which is link number 8. So we're going to go in that order now. So please say Gyepa. Gyepa. And that is craving, link number 8, which is based upon feeling. And here is the definition: based upon link number 7, or the ability to feel, and its desire not to be separated from its object, which is the quality of link number 7. So you have a feeling, and then you have a desire not to be separated from that feeling, whether it's I want to stay away from that or I want to be close to that. Yeah. After being born, develop. So you've got to understand this thing about habituation. Most human endeavors are spent in those two fields, not wanting to be separated from the things we like, and they are forever changing. They come and go. Yeah, we do not want to be separated from that. for those of you who go on teaching this, it's important to say it in the negative, not wanting to be separated from things you like, yeah, and not wanting to be close to the things you don't like, yeah. So that craving,
Why is that?
you know, fully I don't know.
Say cancel out its negativity or something, just saying two negatives.
Do you know? Well, they use the double negative all the time. I just know that this was a specific instruction from my teacher about this in this particular case, and anytime I talk about these two things, and it's not the first time I've heard it, and it's all over in every commentary. They don't just say you want to run away from the things you don't like. They say you do not want to be separated from. Yeah.
In the precepts, they're all
negatives.
also, and it's not it's negative. You could say, "Oh, why can't it be positive because we're Americans? You know, why can't we want the positive aspect of it?" But if you get into positive, you have to list too many things. You say, "Just don't kill." You don't want to say, "Be this, be that, be that." It's too complicated. So I don't know. It's interesting.
That's good.
It's interesting. I want to too.
Yeah, there is a reason. Yeah. And I know that some of the reason is explained in tantric practice, but I don't know that the totality of it is for me. So most human endeavors are based on the desire not wanting to be separated from what we want. We want to hold on to these things, and in particular, these three things that we crave. These are the things that are triggering the karma, putting the energy in the karma.
I was thinking maybe it's there are desires that are beneficial in this practice.
Yeah.
Like sattva, desire for compassion. But if we even become attached to those, so it has to do with that compulsion not to be separated, which is that feeling of I don't want to be separated. It's grasping, it's holding, rather than
holding on to
desires.
something specific. I'm actually going to get through it. It's awesome. It's that kind of holding, and I'll give you the punchline. It's holding on to self-existent practice or self-existent teachers or self-existent. So this is difficult to.
That's the come.
Yeah.
Link 11 is rebirth.
Yeah. Link 11 is after becoming, which is the potent karma about to burst. The mind flops over into a birth, a new birth, a rebirth. So remember I said there's 3 lives in that cycle. 1 and 2 is your past life. It can be explained this way. Link 1 and 2, because of ignorance, you do a whole bunch of shit, liking and disliking, you plant karmas. Yeah? Those karmas produce this life that you've got now, which is, you begin with consciousness. And then you evolve from awareness, from consciousness come all your compositional factors and form and name, and, 6 sense powers. Then you have contact with your world, you develop feelings about your world, and those feelings you begin to hold on to them, and then you begin to hold them a real lot. That's all this life, that's all describing this life, all the way up to one of those karmas just towards the moment of death, just as you're aging and death, becomes so strong. Well, all of them become strong, but in particular this becoming is like the trigger that turns one of those on and flops over into, so this body stopped, flopped over to birth or rebirth, which is link number 11, and then again old age and death. Yeah, so it's like it shortens the whole cycle again. So one explanation is that. Does that help? Okay. So there are 3 types of craving in link number 8, and the one that we're going to talk about specific is the 3rd one. So say the first one, which is duce.
Just
Duce is desire craving. Yeah, which is that craving to be next to the things you desire, the things you want. Craving the desire not to lose attractive objects. Yeah, that's the double negative. The desire not to lose attractive objects, not to be separated from the things you like. This is duce. The second type of craving, all of them together are in link number 8, which is craving, is jigse. Say jigse. And that's jig is. Does anybody know what jigje is? Who jigje is in Tibetan? Which deity jigje? Jigje. Yamantaka. Yeah, you know. He's wrathful. Anyway, he means fear. Yeah. Fear is jig. Yeah, and se is craving, so fear craving. So this is the craving which avoids unpleasant objects. Yeah, that keeps. And when I listen to these things, I keep thinking of us as humans, right? Mm-hmm. The implication in the wheel of life is every single creature you see and the creatures you don't see that could possibly be are all under the influence of these things. Amoeba are running away from warmth that's going to boil them and moving towards temperatures that are going to comfort them.
But how do they create good karma?
How do they? This is a big question. No, it's a massive question. And there's debates about this. It's a big question. Come to course 5. That's my short answer to a big question.
In order to break link 8, you have to...
break link 7.
Well, in order to break link 9, you have to break link 8, which is, so you have to accept the bad, I guess, or embrace it.
No, it's funny. It's funny because one of the assumptions that we make, if we just read this is what's important about this study, okay? If you just read his statement which said if you got rid of desire at the moment of death, you won't have suffering rebirths, yeah? And you didn't understand what that meant, you could make that kind of thing. Or another implication from Buddhist practice in the West is that somehow you're supposed to put up with a shitty world and be okay with it and you'll be fine. It's not that either. It's deeper than that. And we'll get to it. We'll get to it in the next 10 minutes, okay? Hopefully, if I don't, come to course 5. Jigse is fear craving, or the craving that wishes to avoid unattractive objects. Yeah, stay away from the lion, or etc. And the third one, sise. So, sise. How do you call the wheel of life? It's existence wheel, right? Si pa koro, sise. Yeah, si is existence. Craving for existence itself. This is important. Yeah? There's craving here on link number 8, according to this, that produces a very strong attachment. Yeah? On link number 9. And this one, the third time, is not just not to be separated from things you like and not to be close to things you don't like. This is a craving for existence itself, the sense of being itself. It's the thing if you've heard tapes of airplanes dropping, it's the screaming. It's the screaming in people. At those very last moments, just before you know you're going to die, it's the screaming. Or being on the edge of a cliff and someone pushing you jokingly. I don't know if you've had a best friend that was funny like that. and you do that. It's that one. That's sisa.
I had someone try to throw me out a window.
As a joke? Yeah, and your whole body said no. It's not. Yeah, it's that one. So sise is the craving for me. Me, because the existent, because at the moment of death, you think you are ending your existence. Because of self-existence, at the moment of death, you think this one is finished. I'm not going to be there anymore. I am chopped. I am finished. I am complete. That's the scream. That's the pullback. That's the craving for for being.
So, but in a way, believing that another life comes, isn't that also a way of craving for that same existence?
Couldn't it be?
Totally, right? Like, okay,
Couldn't
I don't mind
it be? Couldn't
dying
it
'cause I
be
know
a
I'm
nice
gonna-
floppy practice to say, wow, I've just found the answer to my prayers. I don't ever have to have that life again. I want this shitty existence where everything turns to shit all the time. Every goodness that comes to me, I want that over and over and over and over. Now, of course it can be. It can be very comforting to believe, fantastic, now I've got a practice that lets me self-existently go over and over. But you'll see how that doesn't work.
So is suicide bad karma? Is suicide bad karma?
It's the worst karma. Yeah. It's the worst karma. But we'll talk about that in course 5, why it's one of the worst karmas.
This is asmita. It's one of the kleshas, right?
Yeah. So all 3, do you get the 3 types of cravings now in link number 8? Can someone recite them to me so I feel or check understanding?
Faster.
When I wrote my memoirs about the karmic view of this class, I'm like, your smartest jokes
Where do they come
produced back at you over and over.
Where do they come from?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, all 3 are there, but craving triggers rebirth, especially craving for me. And grasping, which is 9, this is link number 8, intensified to a very high degree at the moment of death. It is the actual trigger for the karma of rebirth, okay? According to this. And then we have a whole bunch of words there that say gelte, so say it after me, gelte,
Gelte.
jitsok,
Jitsok,
tadro, chirlam, dangrok ni, damporni, simegyur. So for those of you who want to, this is, this,
I see I left out a part.
oh you did?
Yeah.
I didn't say, okay, here we go.
Downpour.
So, gelte is there, good, and that means
After
if.
Chirlam, I left out.
Sorry?
After Chirlam.
Okay, I'll get to that. The most important word I want you to really think about and grab here is jigsaw, which is habit of grasping to self. So that's jigsaw. This is the habit we form of grasping to self and the skandhas, or self and the parts. Yeah.
Could it be that it's made easier for people when they're dying to see the light? Is that sort of helping you not think about, oh my God, I'm dying, instead of looking up and saying, oh, the light. There's light. Do you think there's some sort of correlation there, like a little helper for us humans? Do you understand what I mean?
I understand what you mean, but like, I'll tell you, this class today for me is a little important because I've had some close family members, some close members of our family murdered this week. I mean, it's the craziest thing. It was a triple murder. It was the son who was there was a family of 4 kids, 4 boys, 2 people that moved to Australia at the same time we moved there. And they were best friends with my mum and us. So the kids were my age. And one of the kids, when I was about 23, 24, had a brain aneurysm, and he didn't ever come out of that too well. And he had issues with anger towards his family and his siblings because he couldn't get a driver's license anymore and he couldn't get employment. And this seemingly infected the family because there was tension between the mother and the father and the siblings. One sibling left and excommunicated everybody, it got too intense. the parents, although they still loved each other, they couldn't live in the same house because one of the objects of this kid for anger was between the parents. So he hated the father who drank too much, so he overly protected the mother. So over the years, as I saw my family flourish and get happy, we saw this family become codependent, government dependent, living on government dependent. But they were lovely people. They tried opening businesses, they tried, the kids as well. So, it was Monday I get the phone call that this, in Australia you don't have triple murders, you don't have big murders, it's not enough people, it's big news if more than one person, it's big news if one person gets shot. So we don't exactly know what happened, but the mother was stabbed to death, the father was stabbed to death in the same house. The son that had the aneurysm was stabbed to death by one of the sons and their pets, everything. And then the kid stabbed himself until he couldn't anymore, and the police found him half alive. They put him in the hospital, and they charged him in the hospital, I think. And then the other son was here in the United States, so he's flying back. And the one that excommunicated the family hasn't talked to them. So he's got children, and the rest who didn't know the grandparents. He's called to identify his parents. And his brother. No, it's okay, but the reason I'm telling you that is because that is reality in this world. And just because we have the experience of not having to live through that all the time doesn't mean it's not real in this planet and all the variances of that. You're not going to die the way you think you're going to die. I think I tried to counsel my mum as much as I could this week, and she says to me, I can't get the picture out of my mind of this mother seeing her son come at her over and over until she can't see him anymore. So this is the way my mother's processing it. There's no sitting there going, I'm going to look at the light when that happens. When you have a car accident, when you are at the moment where things are so traumatic for you physically and mentally, like that, like this is an extreme. No one here should go through that. Unless you have habituated, and we'll get through it, unless you have habituated your mind to almost self-existently see the world as not self-existent. Does that make sense? You've habituated the way you look at the world so much that you can't not look at the world that new way. Unless you've done that, there is no way you're going to have enough concentration and focus and relaxation and peace of mind to wish for a transition in a way that's good for you. Some people might have the luxury of passing in their bedrooms, but most people are passing on hospital beds, being prodded and poked and pushed and seeing members of their family distressed and unable to move their bodies. It's not a peaceful thing. And it's funny because I think we have that in our minds. We think because it's quiet or death is silent, that there's some kind of peace in there and that everything is fine. We're going to be okay. Now, I don't think that's the case, and especially when you investigate these words coming here. So thanks for asking, because I also don't want to pretend. Many Buddhist centers, many Eastern practices, and this goes to your question, Javier. Isn't it good we can make this a self-existent practice, and then we can be deluded for a lifetime after lifetime that this grasping to yourself, can be satisfied. It's more of that, yeah.
It's always changing. It's nothing to grasp. It's impermanent.
Yeah. So you're deluding yourself. The delusion is deluding itself. It's the middle way, the sharp, walking the knife's edge or something. It is this practice. You are put in a position where you have got to view the world in a specific way. You are forced to see it in another way, and you can't be crazy. It's a hard practice, and you do that every millisecond. And the idea is you do it so much that at the moment of death, regardless of how it comes, you get some certainty that you're habituated enough to deal with that thing. Yeah? And if I can share a special thing for me, one of the things that gave me solace in this practice was I didn't think I was scared of dying until someone invited me to go parachute, and then I'm like, I'm scared. Like I was just thinking about it, I was frightened. Through some time I had this dream, and in the dream, it's one of those dreams that are very real. In the dream we have a car accident and the car goes over this cliff, and I don't think it's a dream, I think I'm doing it. Yeah? And it was after learning this stuff, and learning it over and over and over. And as the car goes over and I see, what seems to be chaos and the rest, an image of my teacher appears in front of me, and I see where things really come from. That this is just a production of karma. And the appearance of the teacher was there. And for me, that for some reason, for obvious reasons, that for me gave me some peace of mind, not to relax too much, but to keep habituating that view. Because now I've got a visual and a sensation of what it would be like to go through a trauma, and then I also have the flavor of knowing how to force a non-self-existent view on something that seems self-existent. Yeah, so the point of practice is to habituate that in your consciousness so much that regardless what happens, however, and it doesn't just mean at death, regardless what happens between now and death, as your bones get fragile and break, as your family starts. I have no idea why the last 2 months, I've told you the stories about all these deaths and near-death experiences, and I have no idea why they should all come right now. Yeah? That they're forcing something. So let's talk these lines from Dharmakirti. So Gyelte is if jigsaw is the habit of grasping to self and your parts, yeah, or skandhas. Tadral is to lose something. Chir is because. What's lam? Path. Okay. In particular, this one is talking about one of the paths. If the habit of grasping to yourself to lose something because path, this will give you an insight. So it's a specific lam out of the 5 lams. Yeah. Dang Hor means at the beginning. Si is rebirth. Me is not, and Gyur is would be. At the beginning of the path of seeing. Actually, let's read the next sentence. So, lam here is the path of seeing. If we get rid of this kind of habit of seeing that things are self-existent, yeah, is the key to getting rid of that grasping. The next line, which is Lenchik Kepa, is that right? Yeah. Lenchik Kepa Mapang Chir, is that innate grasping that we all have as seeing ourselves as self-existent, we must get rid of in order not to be reborn. And Dangna Ang Sipa Gala Yu is that if you were to give up seeing yourself as self-existent, you would not have to take a rebirth. That's saying that the desire that crosses over into grasping as me, this means that dying without grasping to me, that specific me, it isn't the only thing that needs to be avoided. I want to explain those 3 lines when we come back from a break, because it's not just the idea that once you know not to grasp to things as self-existent, you're somehow free of a cyclic rebirth. Yeah? not just that. It's a bit more than that that produces your next life. And the proof of that is, if seeing the beginning of the path of seeing, if seeing the ultimate nature of reality, if seeing emptiness directly, you could see how desire functions in your world and how ignorance produces things, then at that point you wouldn't have any future lives. But we know you have Aryas, and you have once returners, and you have all these beings who have had an experience of ultimate reality and must or should come back. So it's not enough just to have a direct experience of ultimate reality to stop the cycle of rebirth. You actually have to enter the realm of no longer seeing things as self-existent, which will be the punchline. Not just enough to say, I know that they're not self-existent because I've seen them, but I'm experiencing everything as self-existent, so it's a little fake here, but I know I'm focused.
Is that the path
Yeah?
of habituation?
That's what the path of habituation leads to. And in fact, it's the 4 ways of perceiving yourself, which is we did in the meditation. The path of habituation is what jumps you over to the last path. Excellent. Yeah. I love you. Let's take a break, take a 10-minute break, we'll come back and drunk up and we'll close this story. Thank you. Merry Christmas.